Notice this. There's a silent existential rigidity, an invisible veil that, even as your soul cries out for freedom, prevents the full awakening of consciousness. What if the incessant search for control, this illusion of permanence that we've been taught, is the very trap that hinders your inner transformation? In this video, we're going to uncover how the pain of rigidity shackles us to suffering, and how true spiritual awakening lies in embracing the fluidity of consciousness, finding the wisdom to live in an impermanent universe. The human experience is, in its essence, a dance between what is and what transforms. However, many of us live under the veil of the perception that reality is solid, fixed, and predictable. This conviction, while offering apparent comfort and a false sense of security, often traps us in a dream where the belief in the permanence of forms and identities prevails. But what happens when this illusion clashes with life's inevitable tide of changes? A void emerges, a silent anguish, an existential blockage that prevents us from living fully. This is the invitation of awakening within the dream, a call to reconnect with the true, fluctuating nature of existence. It's not an escape from the world, but a deeper, more authentic engagement, revealing forgotten truths and questioning illusions. Impermanence is the fundamental fabric of everything that exists, and the conflict between our desire for stability and this transitory reality is the fertile ground for suffering. Our mind seeks patterns, but when this need for permanence meets impermanence, a deep dissonance is born. This journey invites deep reflection, inner silence, and lucid action, making space for consciousness to recognize itself beyond the ego, on a true inner path. Adherence to fixed forms and identities, by its transitory nature, entails profound psychological and emotional consequences. Suffering emerges not only from external events, but from the way we cling to them. This attachment manifests in various spheres of life. In material possessions, where the anxiety of acquisition and the fear of loss become an unsatisfying cycle. In relationships, where the fear of separation and the attempt to control the other or the outcomes lead to possessiveness and disillusionment. In personal identity, where a rigid self-concept and resistance to evolution, aging, or changes in circumstance create a sense of stagnation. And in beliefs and opinions, where the inability to adapt to new information and defensiveness when challenged result in mental inflexibility and isolation. This rigidity is not just an abstract concept, but a lived experience of suffering, an unconscious blockage that prevents genuine connection with the present moment and the natural flow of life. The psychology of the soul reveals the fundamental role of the ego in this resistance to change. The ego seeks to create a stable and predictable world, along with a fixed sense of self, even if this stability is illusory. It fears the unknown, the dissolution of its constructed identity. A common trap is the flight from pain disguised as light, where spiritual solutions are sought to avoid the discomfort of impermanence, a subtle form of rigidity. The pain of rigidity is self-imposed suffering that springs from the ego's internal resistance, and its often unconscious attempt to create an illusion of control. The ego interprets impermanence as a threat, leading to continuous effort, anxiety, and frustration. This effort diverts vital energy, as it fights against the fundamental nature of reality. The more one tries to control, the more one experiences the pain of lack of control and the illusion of separation, creating a cycle of suffering. Understanding this dynamic is crucial for self-observation and the transcendence of the ego, revealing that liberation lies in addressing internal rigidity, and not in manipulating the external world. What if true security wasn't in holding on, but in letting go? Think of the metaphor of the vase that only serves because it has empty space. Our soul can only receive the new when we let go of the old, when we allow ourselves to be the fertile void. The solution is not to find security in permanence, which is impossible, but to redefine security as the ability to flow with impermanence. The paradox of security is resolved by a profound change in perception and an internal reorientation, moving from an external search for stability to an internal cultivation of adaptability, trust, and surrender. This is true inner transformation. And this illusion of permanence, this rigidity that traps us, finds a profound echo in ancient wisdoms. At the heart of Hindu philosophy, particularly in Vedanta, lies the profound concept of Maya. Maya is not simply unreality or falsity in a simplistic sense, but rather a creative power that simultaneously conceals ultimate reality, Brahman, pure consciousness, and projects a world of seemingly real, diverse, and captivating forms. It is the veil that makes the dream of manifestation appear solid and separate. It's crucial to understand that Maya is not inherently evil or negative. It is, in fact, the divine dance or lila that makes manifestation and experience possible. It is the power that allows the one to manifest as many, but, in doing so, creates the illusion of separation and duality. This philosophical concept reveals a new and profound layer of consciousness, aligning with universal wisdom and perennial philosophy. The ancient wisdom of Maya finds a surprising resonance in the contemporary experience of reality as a dream or a simulation, a dreamlike life. Our senses and our mind actively construct the reality we perceive. The brain filters, interprets, and organizes sensory data into a coherent world, acting as a personal Maya that shapes our individual experience. This makes the ancient concept highly relevant and understandable for a modern audience, bridging the gap between timeless wisdom and contemporary thought. This perspective illuminates the real, shifting our perception from a fixed, objective, and external reality to a more fluid, subjective, and ultimately dreamlike experience, where the boundaries between observer and observed begin to blur. Maya is not just an external cosmic illusion. It operates internally through our perceptual and cognitive biases, transforming our personal experience of reality into a subjective dream. This means that the veil of illusion is not just out there in the cosmos, but deeply intertwined with our individual consciousness and the way we construct our perceived world. Although Maya is a cosmic principle that governs the manifestation of the universe, its effect is experienced individually. Our minds, through their interpretive mechanisms, beliefs, memories, conditionings, are what localize and personalize this projection. The dream is not just what is out there, but how our consciousness processes and interprets what is out there, creating our unique, mind-constructed reality. This implies that awakening within the dream involves not just understanding a philosophical concept, but actively observing and deconstructing our own internal mechanisms of perception and interpretation. The veil is, in part, external, but significantly internal and personal, which deepens the practical implications, moving abstract philosophy to personal introspection and self-observation. If reality itself is a veil, a dance of Maya, and everything is in constant flux, then why do we cling so tightly to form? The human quest for security, predictability, and control is a fundamental driving force, rooted in evolutionary survival instincts and the ego's desire for stability. We build structures, routines, and belief systems in an attempt to create a sense of lasting security. However, this instinctive pursuit contrasts with the universal and undeniable truth of impermanence. Everything, from physical matter to thoughts, emotions, relationships, and even our own bodies, is in a constant state of flux, arising, changing, and passing. The inherent conflict lies in the fact that the more we try to solidify, control, and cling to what is inherently transitory, the more we clash with the fundamental nature of reality, inevitably leading to frustration, anxiety, disillusionment, and suffering. This is the profound paradox that instigates questioning and openness, inviting reflection and inner silence. The ego, as a mechanism of self-preservation and the architect of our separate identity, actively constructs elaborate narratives of stability and control. It creates a script for life, a fixed story of who we are, what we possess, what we should achieve, and what should happen, desperately trying to map fluid reality onto a rigid structure. The desire for control, for ready answers, and for belonging are unconscious forces that drive attachment to form. The ego equates security with predictability and control, even if this predictability is a self-imposed prison that prevents true freedom and spontaneity. This also leads to the spiritualized ego traps, where even spiritual concepts are used to reinforce a sense of specialness, certainty, or control, instead of fostering true surrender to impermanence. The paradox of seeking security in impermanence is not merely an intellectual dilemma, but a fundamental misdirection of energy on the part of the ego. In its attempt to protect and ensure survival, the ego inadvertently creates the very suffering it seeks to avoid. The ego's primary function is self-preservation, often interpreted as maintaining a stable and predictable environment and self-image. It perceives impermanence as a threat to its existence, triggering fear and resistance. The ego's attempt to control the uncontrollable, impermanence, leads to constant effort, anxiety, and frustration. This effort is a diversion of vital energy because it fights against the fundamental nature of reality. The more one tries to control, the more one experiences the pain of lack of control and the illusion of separation, creating a self-perpetuating cycle of suffering. This implies that the solution is not to find security in permanence, which is impossible, but to redefine security as the ability to flow with impermanence. The paradox is resolved not by a logical answer, but by a profound shift in perception and an internal reorientation, moving from an external search for stability to an internal cultivation of adaptability, trust, and surrender. Confronting this tension invites us to deeply question the very premise of seeking security in an impermanent world. Is true security found in external stability, which is always fleeting, or in an internal capacity to adapt, surrender, and flow with change? This inquiry sets the stage for the crucial shift from attachment to embrace, from resistance to surrender, which will be explored in the following sections as the path to genuine freedom and peace. Given this paradox, how can we free ourselves from attachment to form and embrace impermanence? The transition from theoretical understanding and paradoxes to practical application is fundamental for transformation. Real presence emerges as the essential antidote to prevent us from getting lost in the dream or the script of life, which is, in large part, a mental construction. Presence implies bringing mindful, non-judgmental attention to the present moment, observing thoughts, emotions, sensations, and external events as they arise and fade, without identification, attachment, or reactive judgment. It is becoming the silent witness. Simple yet profound contemplative practices can be integrated into daily life, such as conscious breathing, which anchors attention in the natural rhythm of the breath, body awareness, which allows one to feel the body from within, grounding oneself in physical sensation, and sensory awareness, which invites one to notice sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and textures with renewed attention, allowing them to be as they are, without labeling or analyzing. These practices are practical consequences and applicable insights for daily life, aligned with the goal of promoting self-observation and lucidity. Disidentification from the life script is a process of recognizing that the life story is the narrative we construct about ourselves, our past traumas, future aspirations, roles, parent, professional, partner, perceived limitations, and desires. This narrative, though seemingly real and convincing, is part of the dream, Maya, that keeps us trapped. Techniques for observing this narrative without becoming entangled in it cultivate a sense of inner space. Witness consciousness allows us to observe thoughts and emotions as transient phenomena, like clouds passing in the sky, without claiming them as mine or being carried away by them. Gently questioning deeply ingrained beliefs and the stories that define our self and our world helps us recognize their impermanent nature. Furthermore, recognizing projections, how our internal script and conditioning influence our perception of others and the world, frees us from reactive patterns. This process helps dissolve unconscious patterns of suffering and the traps of the spiritualized ego, since the ego thrives on identification with the script and its fixed roles. Disidentification from the script does not mean apathy, passivity, or abandonment of responsibilities. On the contrary, it leads to lucid action, actions that emerge from presence, clarity, and wisdom, rather than reactive patterns, past conditionings, or egoic desires. It is acting from consciousness, not from the dream. A common misunderstanding of disidentification or detachment is that it would lead to passivity or withdrawal from the world. However, the emphasis on lucid action and ethical stance and maturity in human relationships contradicts this idea. If one is truly present and disidentified from the ego's script, actions become more aligned with reality, more effective, and more compassionate. They are not dictated by past conditionings, future anxieties, or egoic desires, but arise spontaneously from the intelligence of the present moment, informed by clarity and wisdom. Therefore, disidentification is a refinement of action, not an absence of it. It is acting from presence and truth, instead of acting from the illusions of the dream. This provides a crucial practical and ethical dimension to the concept of awakening, making it relevant for ethical, sensitive, and conscious coexistence with the world. These practices also lead to the cultivation of inner silence. When the mind is no longer lost in the incessant chatter of the script, a natural quietude and space emerge. This inner silence is not an absence, but a profound presence, essential for true awakening and for hearing the deeper wisdom that resides within us. And as we cultivate this presence and disidentify from the script, we begin to perceive life in a new way, as a continuous flow. The metaphor of the river is a powerful and ancient image to symbolize the incessant flow of life, the dynamic nature of consciousness, and the fundamental principle of impermanence. A river is in constant motion. The water at any given moment is never the same, yet it remains identically a river. This perfectly illustrates the paradox of change within continuity. The form changes, but the essence of the flow persists. This analogy connects directly with the fluctuating nature of reality. Our experiences, thoughts, emotions, relationships, and even our sense of self are like the water in the river, constantly arising, changing, and passing. Nothing is static. Everything is in motion. This metaphor translates the invisible into powerful and touching images, aligning with symbolic language that reveals the invisible. Embracing flowing like water in the human experience means a profound shift from resistance to acceptance, from attachment to detachment. This involves surrender, releasing the desperate need to control the current of life and trusting in the natural unfolding of events, even in uncertainty. It implies adaptability, the ability to bypass obstacles instead of rigidly clashing with them, finding creative paths through challenges. And finally, it means non-resistance, allowing experiences, emotions, and thoughts to be as they are, without judgment, suppression, or attachment, recognizing their transitory nature. This is the direct antithesis of the pain of rigidity and the ego's desire for control. It is about stopping the fight against the current and, instead, moving with it, finding peace in the movement itself. This approach welcomes without infantilizing and teaches without imposing, inspiring without deluding. Flowing with the river of consciousness does not imply passivity, apathy, or irresponsibility. A river, though in flux, is a powerful force that shapes its banks, nurtures life along its course, and finds its way to a larger body of water. Analogously, embracing transience and the flow of consciousness leads to a deeper sense of silent ethics and lived example and responsibility. When one is in flow, actions align more with universal truth, compassion, and wisdom, naturally benefiting oneself, others, and the environment. The metaphor of the river of consciousness not only illustrates impermanence, but also implies a direction, an intelligence, or an inherent purpose in the flow. A river does not flow aimlessly. It follows gravity, carves paths, sustains ecosystems, and ultimately reaches a larger body of water, the ocean, signifying a natural progression and interconnectedness. This suggests an intrinsic wisdom in its movement. If consciousness is like a river, then embracing its flow means trusting in a greater and intelligent design or unfolding of existence. It implies that there is a natural way for things to be, and our suffering comes from resisting this natural current. Surrender, then, is not giving up, but yielding to this inherent wisdom of the flow, aligning with the whole. This means that, by aligning ourselves with the impermanent nature of reality, we access a deeper source of wisdom and guidance, leading to more effective, harmonious, and compassionate actions that embody lucid action and practical coherence with life. This reinforces the idea that awakening is also a path of coexistence, responsibility, and presence in the world, connecting individual awakening to collective well-being and ecological consciousness. The journey of awakening within the dream has led us through a profound transformation. We started by recognizing the pain of rigidity and the illusion of permanence, delved into understanding Maya as a cosmic and personal veil, and confronted the fundamental paradox of seeking security in a universe defined by flux. We deepened our understanding of presence and disidentification practices as practical paths to inner freedom, culminating in the profound wisdom of flowing with the river of consciousness. This awakening is not about escaping reality or detaching from life, but about experiencing it more fully, authentically, and joyfully. It is the transition from living in the dream to living as the dream, with lucidity. The liberation that comes from detachment from fixed forms and identities is profound, a freedom from the prison of fear, anxiety, and the continuous cycle of suffering that arises from resistance to change. This unlocks untapped potentials of consciousness. The freedom to flow, achieved through recognizing the fluctuating nature of reality, is not merely personal peace, but a fundamental shift that naturally leads to a more ethical, compassionate, and responsible engagement with the world. The channel's value proposition is that spiritual awakening is intrinsically linked to ethics, compassion, authenticity, respect for nature, and responsibility. If the dream is fundamentally the illusion of separation and permanence, then awakening from it, recognizing fluidity and interdependence, inherently dissolves the artificial boundaries between self and other, self and nature. When the illusion of separation diminishes, the natural consequence is an expansion of empathy, compassion, and the recognition of fundamental interdependence. This translates directly into ethical behavior, not harming others, as they are not truly separate, responsible action, understanding the cascading effects of one's choices, and ecological consciousness, respecting nature as part of the interconnected whole. This means that awakening within the dream is not just a personal journey in search of inner peace, but a catalyst for transforming the relationship with the entire fabric of existence. The freedom gained is not just freedom from suffering, but freedom for compassionate action and conscious living, promoting the flourishing of more integral, lucid, and conscious human beings in relation to the whole. The journey of awakening is not a destination, but a continuous process, a walk of humanity and responsibility. We invite a continuous integration of presence, ethics, and discernment into daily life, fostering an ethical, sensitive, and conscious coexistence with the world. Close your eyes for a moment. Feel your breath, the gentle flow of air entering and exiting. Imagine yourself as a river, flowing effortlessly, circumventing obstacles, without clinging to any bank. Feel the lightness of letting go of control, of trusting the flow of life. Allow this feeling of fluidity to fill every cell of your being. What if the greatest security you seek isn't in holding on, but in allowing yourself to flow with life, like a river that always finds its way? If these words touched something within you, perhaps it's time to take another step on this path of rediscovering your inner truth. Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to continue receiving content that nourishes the soul with presence and authenticity. Share in the comments what resonated with your heart. Your story might be the mirror someone needed to find. And if you wish to continue on this vibration, watch the video we've left below. It was chosen with care to continue this journey with you. Peace and light.